Good morning, beloveds. Hello, it's so good to be back today. Wow. Well, I have to tell you, when we arrived here this morning, we saw that our sign was upside down. And we were like, oh, that's how today's going to be. I can do that, though. That's fun, right? All is well. So I was not here. Can we get the lights on this side from someone, please, so we're balanced? Thank you. Yeah, the light switch right there, Jesse. Yep, that's the one. Thank you. Cool. Let there be light. Oh, so, wow. Look at you. It's a great day to be alive, isn't it? Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, last Sunday, we were with our granddaughter. She was getting baptized, and that was wonderful. I know. And Susan delivered the message. How was she? Of course, she was awesome. Thank you so much. And so today is the last Sunday in October, and our Seed of Awakening for October has been creating Affluence, and this has been such a fun month for me, and hopefully for you too. And so today's talk title is the A to Z Steps to a Richer Life, and that was the title of our book of the month, which I seem to have left in the other room, along with the upside down sign. Yeah. And so that's been just an awesome book because it is a thin book, and I know many of you purchased it, and I also got the Audible so that I could just pop it in and listen to it whenever, it's about an hour read. So it's really cool just to hear and let those words seep in and let it, as Deepak says, allow it to metabolize in our bodies, right? And so that's really what's up. We've got to allow this stuff to integrate, because it's one thing to know it and to hear about it on Sunday, but if we're not having an experience of it in our lives, then we've got to ask ourselves, well, what are we doing? Oh, thank you. Oh, there's angels everywhere. This is the book of the month this month, and it's been just amazing. And so there's the A to Z's. Now today, Spirit was like, you don't want to do A to Z. The talk title's already there, though, so we'll just go with it here. But actually, the Z word was really blowing my hair back, or ringing my bell, as they say. And the Z word that was really powerful for me in preparing for this talk was zeal. Now, how many of you remember the last time you used that word in a sentence? This morning? Yeah. And so zeal is a power that generates interest and engages the creative energy of the universe. Zeal is the inner fire of the soul that urges us onward, regardless of what the intellectual mind of caution and conservation might have to say. So zeal is that mighty force that incites the winds, the tides, the storms. It urges the planet on its course and spurs the ant to greater exertion. Did you just have an image of an ant with a whole slice of bread on its back? Jamming, right? Zeal. It's the urge behind all things. What a powerful thought, that zeal is the urge, that zeal is that inner urge behind all things that just goes out and gets it done. But we have to engage that creative spark of the divine and go out and get it done, and get it done with joy. So the word zeal alone, it kind of makes me giddy. That feeling of, it's like when you eat something sour and it gets to your jaws, it's like say it, zeal. It's just like, woo, I can feel it when I say it. It's one of those high frequency words. Let's use that word this week, okay? And so try this on. First, I'm going to say it all the way through, and then I'll invite you to repeat after me. This is a quote by Charles Fillmore. Some of you know it. I know Kristen knows it. He says, "I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today." So for those of you who don't know, Charles Fillmore and his wife Myrtle were the founders of the Unity tradition. So I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. So please repeat after me. I fairly sizzle with zeal.
I fairly sizzle with zeal.
Energy. And enthusiasm. Eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. Woo! Isn't that great? That's going out in the e-news, and that'll be available for you to repeat throughout this week. In case you forget, or in case you have, a low energy day, because that happens. Now your energy will be shifted immediately when you state that one little sentence, right? And I also was inspired by this plan of affluence. So I used to call it the plan of gratitude. Now I have this thing, which is a plan. What's your plan? Everybody needs a plan. Positively life-affirming narrative. That's the plan, right? What is your plan of affluence? And so I'm grateful, thankful, and much obliged. My heart overflows in appreciation for all that is. I am gifted, shifted, and lifted. I'm well blessed, highly favored, and my cup runneth over. I lean into my good and say, yes, bless, bless. I'm on the high side of awesome at the top of my game. I praise my life in the name of love. I give thanks for the abundant good all around me. I'm on fire for spirit and unafraid to show it. My words uplift, inspire, and create. And oh yeah, I lost a little weight. Yes. All right. Those are three sayings for you to use this week that can inspire you and uplift you. And for me, it just brings me joy, and it literally does change my frequency. I can feel myself already vibrating at a different level, which is so good. It's better than coffee, and coffee's pretty good, right? It's questionable. I heard that over there in the corner. No about that. So today what I want to talk about is tithing and giving as an act of faith. And this is the one time this year I'm going to talk about it. And so lean in, right? So we can practice tithing and giving as an act of faith to overcome our fear. What? Yes, it's true. So many of us have or have had at some point some fear of losing money, or a fear of not having enough money, or not being enough money, or whatever the case may be, right? Now, what we can do to flex our faith muscle and to flex that abundance principle in our lives is to give as an act of faith. And so the giving is really about you and the God of your understanding and that relationship. And so when we're giving, we want to remember that we're not practicing giving so we can get more. We're actually practicing to know God, to cultivate our faith and trust in the thing itself, this invisible presence, which in our teaching includes love and law as the one who walks through all feet, right? And so there's an origin of tithing, which was with Abraham, and then the law of Moses 450 years later. How many of you know about this from your Catholic upbringing? Or no, don't remember that? Okay, good. It's all new. So back in the day, a tithe was varying from 10% to 22%, and then the Moses law, or the Mosaic law, whatever they called it, started out as, okay, well, instead of just 10 to 22%, it's the best of my goods. So, you have all of this cattle, for instance, you're going to give, say you have 1,000 cattle. You're going to give 10 or 100 of your best cattle, not just some of the cattle, but the best of them, right? That's a lot, isn't it? I'm not asking you for that. That's a lot, the best of my goods, or the best of your land, And so that was way back in the day. Now, fast forward to these times, in this day and age, or even a little bit back from here, when the Science of Mind textbook was written, there's no mention in the textbook of tithing or giving. So there is actually mention of changing our thinking to allow the prosperous flow of good to pour into our lives. So tithing as a spiritual practice works, and you can try it yourself, and you don't have to start at 10%, and your relationship with the God of your understanding is totally up to you. You can start at 1, 2, 3, whatever percentage you desire, and then you can practice it and see what happens, Now, my experience of it has been when I increase it just a little bit so that I can feel it, then I make this shift consciously to put my reliance upon the divine, to really get that God is the source of my supply, not the EDD or the government, Social Security Department, Those, that's an avenue through which you get supply, your bank account, your jobs, or whatever, but those aren't the actual source of our supply. And so I heard this week, where is that money going to come from? And the response is, from wherever it is right now. Right? How cool is that? That money is going to arrive here from wherever it is right now. And so that means I'm not saying it has to come from you or you or you or them or this or that, right? It's going to come because we are open, we have stepped into the flow, and then we let it go. I promised I would never sing, but there we go. Right? Stepping into that flow, letting it go, and opening your mind, your heart, and your soul, and being present to the divine and all the beautiful gifts that it wants to bring into our lives right now. So it's up to us whether we want to use this or not. And it's like electricity, If I came to your house and you were using candles all the time because you didn't know that flipping the light switch on would give you light, I would tell you about it. I'd be like, hey, do you know you can just flip this switch and then you'll have light? Don't you want to try this for yourself? So that's where I'm coming from today, right? This idea of giving and tithing as a spiritual practice. And so for us, the principle is here and we can use it, and others are using it quite successfully, so why not us? Now, in order for us to get to this place, we have to overcome our fear of lack and limitation. And our fear of not having or being enough, they're all tied together, right? And so sometimes we don't do things because there are fears within us that are either unconscious, and then it manifests like we're upset, oh, they're asking for money. That's really a fear, right? There's a fear within us that needs to be addressed. So we can strengthen that faith muscle by tithing and giving. But we must discontinue right away sharing stories of our adversity and begin telling stories of our truth. Now, what comes up in our foundations class, what has been coming up pretty much every week is about all, there's so much going on in the world. And so there's always so much going on in the world, okay? And so we are human beings, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we are witnessing all of it, right? The whole spectrum of everything and constantly. And so it's up to us to be able to stand in the truth and know that God is the source of our supply and that God is present here right now, and to be able to sit in the silence and be in prayer for those who are suffering, and to also continue to live our lives, because this is it, right? This is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. And so we want to live fully and love fully and be fully in the moment now, and be a presence of peace for others where that's needed, and be that presence of love and that force of good in the world. We all have it. That's why you're all here. Spirit woke you up this morning and had you come in here so that you could hear something or experience something, whether it was in a song or whether it was in your connection with somebody in fellowship and conversation, or maybe it was in a prayer, or you're going to get a prayer after the service that you didn't even know you needed. Whatever it is, right? We're here, we get filled up, and then we get to go and be that presence in the world and be that presence in our lives. Are you with me? Yes. Yeah. So how do we get past the fear? Now, I'd like to talk about fear because fear can be paralyzing, and nobody talks about it, right? It's like taboo to talk about fear. Oh, faith is great. I love faith, But what about fear? Because fear is a really valid experience. Like, it's a real experience, When I first got into ministerial school, I remember my first class, and my teacher was Dr. Edward Fillion. Some of you may know him or have heard of him. And he got up there, and, all the ministers were always so eloquent, and they knew what they were talking about, and they were spot on. And for some reason, I said, "Are you ever afraid?" Like, that was my question for this amazing person, And because I wanted to know, because I never heard people talking about it. And he said, "Well, yeah, I'm afraid all the time. I was afraid this morning I might trip on those stairs coming up this pulpit, and then I might trip coming down too." And so there was that level of being able to connect with that, because this isn't just airy-fairy stuff, right? We're all human. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and things happen. We have experiences of fear. We have experiences of being in a state of victimization at times. It might happen, but we're up to something, and so it's up to us to choose how we will handle it. And so that's all about these tools that we're getting here. Something may happen in your life, but the way that you handle it is going to be different because of what you're learning here, which is so cool. So fear. Many people have fear around money that are deeply held and unconscious fears. So it's a fear that we don't even know and we can't articulate consciously, but our lives are lived in a specific, particular way that give evidence that there's some kind of fear happening, So they're based in the past and typically a product of our upbringing or our conditioning. And there are likely ideas and beliefs that were planted as seeds to grow in consciousness by our parents, by our family, by our community, and the consciousness of humanity that we were born into. So how do we uncover them and free them for ourselves? And free ourselves from them, right? Very carefully. With practice and courage is the answer. Very carefully. So we've got to face them with wonder and with awe and hang out with these fears and notice what's triggering these fears. And slowly, as we face them, they lose their power over us because we have the courage to face them and look at them, and they will literally dissolve, right? Because you finally said, "Okay, look, I'm tired of being afraid. What's this about anyway?" And then you usually realize, "Oh, that's nothing," and you can move on. And so how powerful that is. But we have to remember we're facing them with wonder and awe and hanging out with them. So I've always been rather fearless. I mean, Travis could probably attest to that. Right, Travis? And you could ask my mother. It frightened her. So I've done my share of things that many would consider to be frightening, like skydiving and bungee jumping, water skiing, wakeboarding, snow skiing, snowboarding, parasailing, hot air balloon ride over Napa. Actually, I officiated a wedding. That was really cool in a hot air balloon. I did some class 4+ white water rafting. Anybody ever done that? So fun and exciting, right? Yeah, woo! That's great. And then I've ridden my bike from San Francisco to LA 4 times, which is a 7-day, 565-mile bike ride. And I've hiked Half Dome 10 times. I hiked Yosemite Falls and got lost in Yosemite. And that was pretty crazy. I hiked Mount Whitney in a day. That took 22 and a half hours. And I lived to tell about it. And so, however, when I tried the flying trapeze for the first time, that's when I really learned the effects of fear on my mind and my body. And it was so powerful. So picture the scene. I'm in this place, and there's the big net and the trapeze and everything's all set. And they come to me and tell me, in 45 minutes, you're going to learn how to do this. And not only are you going to get up there and fly through the air on the bar, but you're going to learn to have someone else catch you. And then when we tell you to let go, you're going to let go and fall into the net. And they're talking nonstop for like 2 minutes. And I'm already like, what did she say? Right? What? Yeah, want, like the Charlie Brown teacher. I could feel that lump rising up in my throat, but I was there, I was in it, right? There's nothing I could do, I was already there. And so they have a bucket of chalk up my hands, and there's a narrow ladder that goes up like in the Bugs Bunny cartoons, right? And so get up the ladder, climb up, like 100 rings, and then I'm at the tippy top, and they ask me to step onto the platform, which is a little rickety piece of wood. And has anybody done flying trapeze, by the way? Okay, good. You're with me then. All right. Awesome. And so they strap you into the harness on both sides, and then I grab the trapeze bar with one hand, and I'm supposed to keep the other hand on the back platform. So now I've got this trapeze bar in my hand, and the man on the other side of the deal is going to say, "Listo," which means ready. And then when he says listo, I'm supposed to take this hand off and put it on the bar. Now I have 2 hands on my bar. And then when the man on my side over here hears that, he is going to check me and make sure my hands are on the bar, make sure my harness is all connected. And then he's going to say hep, which means step off the platform into midair. It's like, now, do it now, right? Now, I know that the coach at the bottom was going to be giving me instructions all along the way. I didn't have to remember anything. She was going to tell me when to grab the bar, when to let go, when to put my knees over the bar, when to put my arms out so I could be caught, all of it, right? And I was like, wow, that's so like God. God is always guiding us. It's always guiding us. Are we listening? It's guiding us, just like that woman at the flying trapeze place. Okay, so I know that she's going to be giving me the instructions. Now, I could hear her voice, right? I'm up there, but I couldn't connect. I could not connect. So they said hep, I stepped off into midair, and it was like, wah, 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 wah. It's like something had shielded me. I could not hear. And then I started to faintly hear, but it was like I couldn't make the connections. I couldn't make the sequence to actually go from my brain to my leg to put it over. And it was so fascinating for me. And I realized that was fear. So fear is like a wall between our brain, right, and action. So we get paralyzed by fear, and then we can't take the next step because we're so afraid, right? And so I couldn't connect with her instructions. I was like somewhere else, and I was so mentally gripped by that fear that it was impossible to take action. I couldn't move, and I was on this trapeze bar. Like, I need to do something, right? Can't just stay here forever. Hello? So finally she said, let go and fall. And it was like, oh, thank God. But even that took a huge amount of effort for me to do. and I let go and fell into the net, and my adrenaline was pumping, right? My body was trembling, and I crawled my way across the netting, which is all rickety too, and it was like, oh my goodness. And I flipped over. They teach you how to flip over to get down to the concrete. Flipped over, and then I was waiting for my next turn. It's kind of like water skiing, right? You get your turns, and then someone else goes, and then you get your turn again. All right, so I waited for my next turn, and it came, and I chalked up my hands, climbed up, and the fear was there, but it was less gripping this time. I could hear the instructions, and I took the actions, and it was kind of a fumble, though, And then I waited for my next turn, and then there was less fear again, and I worked on my timing, and I had almost perfected it by this point. She's giving the instructions the entire time. Next, it was time for me to get caught by the person on the other side. I just went for it, and it worked out. I followed the instructions, and so that was so powerful for me, you guys, because I never realized how gripping fear is and how much it can stop us. And it's just like this thing that happens, And so we want to be able to dissolve and release these fears that are unconscious, that are gripping us, that are keeping us in place and not allowing us to be all that we came here to be. Beautiful, magnificent beings of light in all of your glory, in all of your magnificence. Yes. So once fear is in the picture, it keeps us from seeing, hearing, and experiencing our good. And it keeps us from being keenly aware of what's going on all around us. So if we're not keenly aware of what's going on all around us, we might miss our good fortune because we're so in this fear and so in our mental story about it. So there's also fear that is necessary for us to keep us out of danger, but that's not the fear I'm talking about. We're looking at conditioned fear today, unconscious fear that has been woven into our lives, right? And so, friends, it takes practice for us to overcome our fears, just like that practice on the flying trapeze. Now, after that, I went back many more times because it felt like it was more than the trapeze. I was actually facing my fear and learning to do it anyway, consciously, right? And that practice was so powerful for me. So then with our finances, we can take that example and look at our fears around our finances with love. This transforms our fear to faith and actually builds trust in the abundance of the universe, which is the faith and trust in God that we all have and always are open to experiencing more of that, yes? Yeah. So I never knew I had a fear of heights until I got up on that trapeze platform. It must have been some unconscious fear that was dissipated by my facing it. And now I often hear people say, oh, I've got a fear of heights. And I think, why don't you go on the flying trapeze and just get rid of that fear? I mean, isn't it funny? Oh, okay, yes. Just pay me a little bit and I'll do it for you. You can watch me and live through me, right? Or something, right? We're so quick to own these negative aspects. Oh, I have a fear of this. Oh, I can't do it because X, Y, Z. But what if you can? What if you can? What if you can fairly sizzle with zeal? Yes. So it's a subtle shift from the energy of worrying about how bills will get paid to giving as an act of faith, knowing that God will provide. So oftentimes what I hear from people is, well, I'll give when I have more money. But there's some confusion and misunderstanding in that. The truth is that you'll actually have more money when you give, because We're called to be generous, you know? Even Dave Ramsey says if you're in debt or walking through a rough financial season, tithing should still be a priority. Yep, you read that right. While it's tempting to throw our money at our debt, the discipline and faith that tithing brings are worth it. Even while you're paying down your debt, you can still have an attitude of generosity, because without that attitude of generosity, we become constricted, right? It's a matter of the heart, and it's about us and the grace of God and us and the God of our understanding. And so the invitation, for us all is to have our giving regular, developing a pattern and a rhythm of identified giving. And so that means if you're giving cash, you put it in an envelope and put your name on it during the service or whenever you're giving. Or if you're giving via check, you have your check that you bring every week. And if you're going to miss a week, you mail the check. You also can do PayPal, or you can set up recurring giving with Square through our office and Susan, and that way you are giving a little bit every week, and then you can choose to build that up, right? So what happened for me is I took a year off of ministry, and I wasn't giving at all several years ago. Now, I was working avidly to pay back some debt that I had incurred from some pretty bad choices that I made. Anyone ever make bad choices? So I often felt worried about how I was going to make ends meet, and it seemed like the bills just kept coming and kept adding up on top of each other, and I couldn't stop thinking about the compounding items in my mind and worrying about how they were all going to get paid. And then I remembered that I had stopped giving, and so I started giving 5%, and I immediately noticed a shift in my thinking. It was that subtle shift, and it went from the autopilot thoughts of fear and doubt and worry, constriction from compounding thoughts of my unending payments due, to something more like this. Okay, God, I'm giving money and I'm practicing principle here. And it's very uncomfortable. I'm not sure how this is going to work. I wasn't sure how to make ends meet before, and now I'm really not sure. So I will be letting go of the how and turning it over to you, my beloved Spirit. So do your thing. Make it so. I trust you, God. It's up to you now. As I shared with my foundations class, show me the money. Like Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jerry Maguire, show me the money. Well, suddenly, out of nowhere, I started booking clients, and that was totally out of the blue. I hadn't started advertising or anything. Just like that, I made about $3,000 in extra income over the course of about 2.5 months. New opportunities kept appearing out of nowhere. Even today, it keeps happening, and without any extra effort, no extra advertising, no extra anything. No payments for this and that, but I was amazed, because this is what happens when we use principle. It flows through our so-called problems into form. So imagine a water hose. Sometimes we need to unkink the water hose by loosening the grip of fear, doubt, and worry, right? When a water hose gets kinked and you're washing your car and suddenly you're like, where's the water? And then you go and look and you see that there's a kink. Well, there may be a kink in our consciousness that is preventing us from sharing from that overflow, that is preventing us from having that generosity of the Spirit. Or in the past, I had a feeling like I had to give, that it was some kind of a requirement, which created resentful feelings in me, like, what? Just like it created resentful feelings for that back in the Law of Moses days, when they were asking for the best of their land or the best of their animals. And I also treated it like it was a bill that had to be paid. But that's not it either, right? That's not it. This is about our relationship with God. This is a heart thing. It's an adventure of the heart, So you need to eradicate those ideas that it's like a bill or that it's a must that has to happen. Now, I started out with a certain percentage and then I increased it over time. And by June of 2018, I was fully flexing that faith muscle. And then right around the same time is when I walked into CCCSL, and it was like, boom, and ministry has taken off since then. So friends, we're called to overcome our fear of lack and limitation, our fear of not having or being enough. And we can strengthen our faith muscle by practicing tithing and giving. I love what Ernest Holmes said in Living the Science of Mind, page 339. He called this loosing the consciousness. He said, good and more good is mine, and ever-increasing good is mine. There is no limit to the good which is mine. Everywhere I go, I see this good. I feel it. I experience it. It crowds itself against me, flows through me, expresses itself in me, and multiplies itself around me. Whatever your good is. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, your good is your God. So wrapping it up for today, friends, start thinking about how much you will pledge to your spiritual home in 2024. And we'll revisit that for the last time this year in November with pledge cards. So pledging for the year ahead helps our accounting folks plan and budget. And so there's that. And then the questions to ask yourself this week are, where in my life have I been holding back because of fear? Number 2, what would it be like to practice faith in that area instead? And number 3, do I consider myself a generous person? Why or why not? And then your homework assignment is twofold. Consider one thing you can commit to doing today to bring order to your finances. Is it cleaning up your wallet, organizing your bills or your change, or maybe you create a budget or a spending plan or future goals, or maybe it's as easy as balancing your checkbook. And then I encourage you to repeat this mantra. I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. And finally, I'm rich. I'm rich. I'm rich. All right, so let's turn our attention inward. We're going to move into our closing prayer, and you may notice that Travis is not set up here today, and so you are correct, and everything's fine. We're going minimal to help us with our picnic. We've got an awesome picnic today. I pray that most of you, if not all of you, stay for that awesomeness. And for all the new faces, I really want to say hello to you after the service, so don't run away before getting a hug or a handshake, please. All right, friends, let's take a deep breath together. And join me in turning your attention inward. We return to this beautiful, expansive space within, which is the space where I remember with every fiber of my being that spirit is all that there is. It is all that there ever was, and it is all that there ever will be. And I'm so grateful in this moment to recognize this truth and to remember that Spirit is here right now expressing itself in me, as me, and through me, just as it is expressing itself in, as, and through each individual here. It's not in us like jelly is in a donut or gas is in a car. It's in us like we're made in its image and likeness. We are the stuff that it is. So just like if we look in the mirror, we see the resemblance of our mother and father, or if we look at our hands, we might see the hands of our mother or our father. God is in us, as us, and through us in a similar way. And so knowing that this is so, I know that the same divine intelligence that created the planets, the entire cosmos, the galaxy, the multiverse, all of it, that same divine intelligence is right within us here and now. And I know that this divine intelligence is creative and it is powerful and it is working within us in this moment to create for us and move us forward into our greater yet to be. I know that every day in every way we are becoming better and better, meaning we are becoming more of who we already are because we're letting go of the conditioning that led us up to now. We're letting go of false beliefs and things that aren't true about who we are and standing in the light of love and in the light of glory. Spirit loves us exactly as we are, and it is so good. And Spirit is calling us to fairly sizzle with zeal and to recognize our riches, to recognize the beauty and the power of this moment now in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. And I also speak my word today for any individual and family who is suffering. I know that there is so much going on in the world, and we are wrapping our collective love and heart around them and knowing that they feel this love. And I'm so grateful to know that there are always helpers, that people rise up when things happen and help out of the generosity of their hearts. And so it was Mr. Rogers' mom who told him to look for the helpers. There's always people who are helping. And so while we are praying this week for all of the beloved humans who are suffering, we're also looking for the helpers in the situation and all around, and knowing that they are angels of the earth. And we pray for their well-being too, and their energy and their goodness. I'm so grateful for Spirit. I'm so grateful for this life. And I'm so grateful to be on the planet at this time with this group of souls as the spiritual leader of Awakening Ways Center for Spiritual Living. It is so good. I'm so grateful now as I release this prayer with gratitude, knowing that we are blessed and guided every day in every way, and I take my hands off of it and allow it to be, and so it is.
So it is.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.